Every one of us has felt the sting of rejection, the fear that if we step too close to someone who guards their heart, they'll push us away. But here's the truth: rejection is rarely about you. It's about the walls that person built long before you arrived. And if you want to step into the world of someone who fears closeness, you don't break down those walls with force. You walk in with grace. You bring patience. You bring presence. Understand this: an avoidant doesn't need you to chase them. They need you to show that their space is respected, but their presence is valued. When you respect their distance while keeping your energy steady and unwavering, you communicate something powerful. I'm here, but I don't need to trap you. I honor your rhythm. That's how safety is built. Step into their world with curiosity. Not the kind of curiosity that interrogates, but the curiosity that says, I see you, I want to know you, and I don't need to change you to love you. The human heart softens in the presence of curiosity. Control makes it close tighter. Curiosity makes it breathe. Sometimes words are not enough. Sometimes the energy you carry says more than 1,000 promises. If your presence is calm, grounded, and unshaken, you speak to the part of them that's always scanning for danger. And they realize, I can rest here. I am not under threat. That is how closeness begins, through energy before words. And don't forget, trust is not built overnight. It's built moment by moment in small acts of consistency. Every time you show patience instead of pressure, you are laying one more stone on the path that leads them back to connection. Never underestimate the power of these small bricks, because they build something greater than instant passion. They build a bond that lasts. But here's the most important thing: you must know your own worth. If you try to step into their world from a place of fear of needing them to validate you, you will always feel rejected. When you radiate self-respect, when you stand tall and say with your presence, I am enough whether you choose me or not, you remove the very power of rejection. You turn the entire dynamic upside down. So don't push, don't instruct, don't try to force their walls to crumble. Invite them into connection. Show them a world where love is not suffocating but liberating, not a cage but a sanctuary. When you embody patience, curiosity, presence, and self-worth, you won't just step into their world. Without being rejected, you'll show them a new way of being loved. And in that moment, their walls won't need to fall. They'll dissolve on their own. Respecting their space without abandoning your presence is one of the most powerful disciplines you can learn if you want to step into the world of someone who fears closeness. Most people confuse giving space with disappearing, and that is where the breakdown begins. When you vanish completely in the name of respect, what you actually reinforce is their belief that intimacy equals abandonment. On the other hand, when you suffocate or push too hard, you confirm their deepest fear, that intimacy means loss of freedom. The art lies in holding the middle ground. It's about becoming the kind of person who communicates, I see you, I honor your boundaries, and yet I am still here, steady, available, unshaken. That paradox is what makes you magnetic to someone who would otherwise retreat. Imagine someone who has lived their entire life carrying an invisible armor. They've learned to equate closeness with danger because closeness in their past led to pain, rejection, or betrayal. Every time you rush into their space uninvited, that armor hardens. Every time you disappear completely, they feel justified in their belief that nobody can stay long enough. The only way to disarm that cycle is through presence without pressure. It means learning to sit in the discomfort of silence without trying to fill it, learning to hold steady eye contact without demanding words, learning to be a lighthouse rather than a storm. A lighthouse never chases ships. It simply stands tall, shining consistently, offering guidance. That is the kind of presence an avoidant feels safest with, the kind that never wavers. This requires a deep rewiring within yourself. Most of us are trained to equate love with pursuit. We think if someone withdraws, the answer is to chase harder, prove more, do more. But in the avoidance world, every ounce of chasing feels like a net closing in. You must learn the power of restraint, the strength of not reacting impulsively. That does not mean coldness or indifference. It means showing warmth without smothering. It means sending a simple text without following it with 10 more. It means showing up when you say you will, but not demanding that they reciprocate immediately. Consistency becomes the proof of your presence, not your insistence. When you learn to embody this balance, something extraordinary happens. The avoidant begins to feel safe enough to test the waters of connection. They notice that your presence doesn't come with invisible strings attached. They feel that your energy doesn't scream, need, or demand. Slowly they lean in. Slowly they test if you're truly as grounded as you appear. And each time you demonstrate that your respect for their space does not equal emotional withdrawal, their nervous system relaxes a little more. This is how trust is built, not in declarations, but in lived consistency. But make no mistake, this is not easy. It demands emotional maturity. It demands the ability to regulate your own anxiety, to hold back from pressing for reassurance when your own fear of abandonment is triggered. It asks you to become someone who doesn't need constant validation to know their worth. Because if you crumble the moment they pull away, you become another example of instability in their eyes. But if you remain calm, respectful, and grounded, you represent something rare as safety. And safety is the only language their guarded heart understands. Respecting space without abandoning presence is not about playing games or strategies. It's about cultivating a strength within you that shines through your actions. It's about communicating through your steadiness that love can coexist with freedom. You don't need to trap them to connect with them. You don't need to demand their attention to be valuable. Your power lies in your ability to stay present without suffocating, to step back without vanishing, to honor their individuality without forfeiting connection. This balance creates a rhythm that makes the avoidant heart soften, because for the first time, they experience a love that doesn't hurt and a presence that doesn't disappear. When you approach someone who lives behind walls, the instinct is often to lead with answers, solutions, or attempts to control the dynamic, but that only pushes them further away. Control feels like a threat to someone who equates closeness with suffocation. If you want to step into their world without being rejected, you must replace control with curiosity. Curiosity is not a tactic. It is a way of being. It says, I want to understand you more than I want to change you. It communicates your inner world is valuable enough for me to explore it without forcing it into the shape I expect. When you approach an avoidant this way, you're not trying to dominate their space. You're inviting them to share it on their own terms. Think about it. When was the last time you felt truly seen? Not evaluated, not judged, not pressured, but seen. That feeling is rare because most people listen with an agenda. They listen waiting for their turn to speak or to fix or to convince. But the deepest human need is not to be fixed. It's to be understood. For someone with avoidant tendencies who has lived their life expecting people to demand more than they can give, this kind of curiosity is like water in a desert. It softens their defenses because it proves you are not here to control them. You are here to witness them. Curiosity comes in the form of open-ended questions, but more than that, it comes in the form of energy. You can ask the right words with the wrong tone, and the heart will still shut down. But if your energy communicates genuine interest, patience, and non-judgment, even silence feels safe. When they sense your questions are not weapons but invitations, they begin to step into a different reality. They begin to test what it feels like to reveal a little more. They begin to trust that you won't take their answers and use them as leverage against them. This requires you to reframe your mindset. Instead of asking, how can I get them to open up? Ask, how can I create an environment where opening up feels natural? Instead of thinking, how do I get what I want? Think, how do I show them they are enough as they are? That subtle shift removes the pressure from the interaction. It transforms you from someone who demands access into someone who is invited in. And the difference between demand and invitation is the difference between rejection and connection. What makes curiosity so powerful is that it leaves the other person in control of their own pace. You're not kicking down the door of their inner world. You're standing at the threshold with openness, saying, when you're ready, I'd love to know what's inside. That non-threatening stance is everything, because deep down, even the most avoidant person doesn't want to be alone forever. They long for someone who can enter their inner world without trying to rearrange the furniture. They want a companion, not a commander, and curiosity gives them that. But make no mistake, this is not about pretending to be curious just to get closer. Manipulation will always be exposed because people can feel when your interest isn't genuine. This is about cultivating a true desire to know their unique perspective, to honor their experiences, to listen without rushing in to edit their story. It's about training yourself to value understanding over control, to prioritize connection over outcome. When you live this way, you begin to embody the kind of presence that disarms even the most guarded hearts. They feel that they don't have to perform around you. They feel free to be imperfect, free to be silent, free to be real. And in that freedom, connection grows organically, because what every human soul is seeking is not someone who conquers them, but someone who sees them. And when you lead with curiosity, you become that person, the rare individual who can step into an avoidance world without being pushed away. Communication is often misunderstood as the words we speak, but the truth is that the deepest form of communication happens beyond language. When you are with someone who tends to withdraw, it's not what you say that touches them. It's the energy you carry, the presence you bring into the room, the way your body and tone signal safety or danger. Someone who is avoidant is hyper, attuned to energy. They may not even realize it consciously, but their nervous system is always scanning, am I safe here? Am I about to lose my freedom? Is this person going to demand something I can't give? And before your words even register, your energy has already answered those questions for them. That's why if you want to step into their world without being rejected, you must learn to communicate through energy, not just words. Think of moments in your own life when someone walked into a room and instantly shifted the atmosphere. Maybe they didn't say a word, but their presence either calmed you or agitated you. That's the unspoken power of energy. We all transmit signals through our breathing, our tone of voice, our posture, the intensity in our eyes. An avoidant person picks up on these signals more than most, because their protective walls were built in response to environments where words couldn't be trusted. They don't trust declarations of love as much as they trust the feeling of love in your presence. They don't believe promises as much as they believe consistency in your energy. So the first step is to ground yourself. If your energy is frantic, needy, or anxious, they will feel cornered before you even speak. If you are trying to use words to convince them while your body radiates insecurity, they will withdraw. Your energy has to match the message you want to send. Calm, steady, grounded presence communicates, you are safe with me. I am not here to control you. I am not here to drain you. I am here to share space with you. That's what allows them to exhale, even if they don't fully open up yet. This is why silence can sometimes be more powerful than words. When you sit with someone without filling every gap with chatter, you show that your presence doesn't require performance. When you smile gently instead of interrogating, when you allow pauses to exist without panic, you communicate that you're not desperate for their constant engagement. That calm energy is often what makes an avoidant lean in, because they are so used to people trying to pull from them, trying to force intimacy. Your willingness to let intimacy breathe at its own pace communicates more safety than any speech ever could. Energy communication also shows up in your tone. A soft, steady voice reassures the nervous system. A sharp or demanding tone signals pressure. Even the speed of your words matters. When you slow down, you give them time to process without feeling rushed. When you lean back slightly instead of forward, you show you're not invading their space. Every subtle signal adds up, shaping how they experience you. And when all those signals point towards safety, they begin to consider opening their world to you. This requires mastery of your own inner state. You cannot fake calm energy for long if inside you're boiling with impatience or fear. You must learn to regulate yourself, to cultivate peace within, to embody confidence that doesn't need immediate validation. When you walk into the room carrying that kind of energy, you don't have to force connection. It happens naturally. They feel it. They sense it. They relax because your energy tells them you're safe. You're free. You're valued just as you are. In the end, the words you speak will matter, but they will always come second to the energy you embody. You can tell someone, I love you 100 times, but if your presence feels suffocating, they won't believe it. You can promise them freedom, but if your energy feels controlling, they'll run. Yet when your presence communicates peace, when your tone carries patience, when your body language radiates respect, you don't need to convince them with words. They will feel it. And that feeling is what makes space for connection to blossom. Trust with someone who guards their heart is never won through dramatic gestures or instant declarations. It is earned in small, almost invisible moments repeated over time. An avoidant doesn't open up because of one breakthrough conversation or one romantic gesture. They open up because they've seen consistency, patience, and steadiness that doesn't collapse under pressure. For them, intimacy is like a fragile bridge. They will not step onto it if it looks shaky, no matter how passionately you wave them over. They need to feel that every plank of that bridge has been tested, every nail secure, every piece strong enough to hold their weight. And that happens one step at a time. The challenge is that many people expect closeness to be built in leaps. They want immediate depth, immediate vulnerability, immediate connection. They mistake intensity for intimacy, and in doing so, they overwhelm the very person they long to connect with. For someone who is avoidant, that kind of rush feels like pressure, and pressure is the trigger for withdrawal. That's why the small steps matter so much. A gentle check-in, a consistent follow-through, a calm response when they pull back. These are the quiet bricks that build something lasting. When you show up consistently, you send a message stronger than words, I can be trusted. Every time you respect their boundaries while still holding presence, they notice. Every time you keep your word, no matter how small, you create safety. Every time you resist the urge to push when they retreat, you build another layer of trust. These are not grand gestures that impress the outside world. They are small, steady actions that transform the inner world of someone who has learned to fear closeness. This process also requires patience. Trust is not a seed that grows overnight. It's like planting a tree. You water it, you give it sunlight, you nurture it day after day, even when nothing seems to be happening on the surface. Months later, the roots have been spreading deep beneath the soil, preparing to support something strong and unshakable. That's what is happening inside an avoidant as you build trust slowly. On the surface, you may see little change, but beneath, their nervous system is learning a new story. Maybe I can be close without losing myself. Maybe connection doesn't always mean danger. Maybe this time is different. If you can embrace the power of small steps, you remove the fear of rejection. You are no longer trying to crash through their defenses. You're patiently waiting for them to lower the drawbridge themselves. And when they do, it won't be because you forced it. It will be because they finally believe through repeated experience that your presence is safe. That is how trust grows, one steady step, one calm moment, one consistent act at a time. When you interact with someone who withdraws, the temptation is to shrink yourself to chase harder or to prove your worth in ways that feel desperate. But the paradox is that the more you chase, the more you lose the very thing that creates attraction, your own self-worth. An avoidant doesn't lean into someone who begs for closeness, because in their world, that signals danger. What pulls them closer is the strength of someone who knows who they are, who radiates worth without needing constant validation, who stands tall even in the face of uncertainty. When you embody that kind of energy, you stop asking for permission to be valuable, and instead you become magnetic in your own right. Self-worth is not arrogance. It's not about proclaiming how strong or independent you are. It's about living it. It's about carrying an inner knowing that says, I am enough even if you never fully open up to me. I am complete whether or not you choose to come closer. That doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you wall yourself off. It means your value isn't hanging in the balance of their acceptance or rejection. And ironically, when you no longer beg for validation, you create the very safety an avoidant needs to test connection. They begin to sense that you are not clinging to them for your identity, that you don't need their approval to feel whole. That stability makes them feel freer because they don't feel burdened with carrying your worth. This requires discipline. It asks you to face your own fears of abandonment, to do the work of strengthening your own identity so that you don't collapse when someone withdraws. It asks you to cultivate confidence from within, not from how someone else treats you. Because here's the truth, the person who knows their worth cannot truly be rejected. They might be turned away, yes, but they're not diminished. Their value is not negotiable. And when you carry that energy, you shift the entire dynamic. The avoidant begins to feel drawn toward you, not because you need them, but because your self-assurance feels safe, steady, and alive. Think of the difference between a flame that flickers wildly with every gust of wind and a fire that burns steady, no matter what's happening around it. One exhausts those who stand nearby. The other offers warmth, reliability, and strength. That's what unshakable self-worth feels like in the presence of someone who fears closeness. It's the steady flame that communicates, I am here, I am strong, and I don't need to consume you to stay alive. That message does more to soften an avoidant's guard than any speech, because it gives them permission to connect without fear of being engulfed. When you embody self-worth, you stop negotiating for scraps of affection. You stop chasing approval that should never have been conditional. You move from a place of desperation to a place of quiet power. And that power isn't just attractive, it's transformative. It shows the avoidant that love can exist without control, that presence can exist without pressure, and that connection can exist without loss of self. And when you radiate that truth, you don't just step into their world without being rejected. You invite them into yours. The instinct when you care for someone who holds their emotions behind walls is to try to push those walls down. You want to instruct, to explain, to show them how much better things could be if they'd only let you in. But here's the paradox. Every ounce of instruction feels like pressure, and pressure triggers resistance. What actually creates openness is not force, but invitation. Invitation is powerful because it honors freedom. It communicates, you are welcome here, but you are never trapped here. That is what disarms the avoidant heart. Invitation is subtle. It's the difference between saying, you need to talk to me, and saying, I'd love to hear what you're feeling when you're ready. One demands compliance, the other offers choice. For someone who has spent their life guarding their independence, choice is everything. The moment they feel they are being cornered, their defenses go up. But when they sense that the door is open and they can walk through it at their own pace, they begin to test the space you've created. It's like putting a chair by the fire and saying, you're welcome to sit here whenever you'd like. You don't drag them into it. You make it so warm and inviting that eventually they choose it themselves. The beauty of invitation is that it shifts the responsibility of connection. You're not dragging them into intimacy. You're extending your hand and letting them decide if they want to take it. That act alone communicates respect. It shows them that you value their autonomy, that your love doesn't come with shackles. And respect is the soil where trust grows. Over time, those small invitations begin to plant a new story in their mind. Closeness doesn't always mean losing myself. Sometimes it simply means choosing to share space with someone who honors my freedom. Living this way also requires patience, because invitations are not always accepted right away. Sometimes they'll be ignored, sometimes they'll be tested. That doesn't mean you stop offering them. Consistency is what makes the invitation believable. You don't yank the chair away when they don't sit down the first time. You don't slam the door when they hesitate. You keep showing that the invitation stands, that your presence is not conditional, and that they can step closer when they are ready. This steady openness is what eventually lowers their guard. It's important to remember that invitation is not passivity. It's not about doing nothing and waiting forever. It's about creating intentional opportunities for connection without pressure. It's the smile that says, I see you. It's the message that doesn't demand a reply. It's the gentle hand on the shoulder that communicates care without clinging. It's the atmosphere you create that says, this is a safe place for you to be real, and I will not punish you for being yourself. When you lead with invitation instead of instruction, you give the avoidant something they rarely experience, the power to choose connection on their own terms. And that choice is what makes it meaningful. Because when they finally accept the invitation, when they finally walk through the door you left open, it won't be because you forced them, it will be because they wanted to. And in that moment, the connection is not only deeper, it is authentic because it was freely chosen. Thank you for giving your time, your energy, and your heart to this message today. Remember, real transformation doesn't happen in a single moment. It's built through the choices you make, the patience you hold, and the presence you bring every day. If you carry these principles with you, not only will you step into the world of those who fear closeness, you'll also discover a deeper strength within yourself. You have the power to love without losing yourself, to connect without control, and to create safety where walls once stood. I honor the journey you're on, and I want you to know you're not walking it alone. Keep showing up with courage, keep leading with presence, and keep believing in the possibility of love that heals. Thank you, God bless you, and goodbye for now.